this is Carrie Shannon, and this is my reflection on Chapter 2 of the Communities of Play book. I wanted to focus a little bit on this idea of identity and the rise of the avatar. Obviously, the avatar is the player's representation in a virtual world and in online games. The book describes the avatars as being intentional bodies, which I thought was an interesting way of phrasing it. The idea that a player can typically choose his or her own avatar. They can change it. I think it says something about that person. On page 21, it mentions the embodiment of the avatar can also provide clues to player motivation. Why did the player choose that particular avatar? And on page 22, this idea that players often perceive their avatars as a medium through which one's soul or one's deep inner persona is expressed. And that last quote kind of goes along with the main point that I really wanted to focus on that I thought was interesting in this particular chapter. This is a paragraph that I wanted to specifically bring up. It's on page 24. Taking liberties with social transactions within a play frame paves the way for communities to form emotional and social bonds unique to play. Because play is ultimately a form of expression, whether experienced in a structured game world or an open-ended metaverse, it opens up avenues for personal and social development that provide alternatives to real-life roles. In such an environment and fueled by networks, bonds can form that are viewed by players as equally authentic, if not more so, than bonds that form in their offline, everyday lives. There were a few specific phrases I wanted to pull out of this. This concept of play being ultimately a form of expression, that when you go in to play a game, you are in fact expressing yourself in one way or another. And that when we talk about these structured game worlds, there's opportunity there for personal development and social development because it gives you an alternative to a real-life role. I think about myself as an individual. I think about myself when I was in high school. I think about our students who are going online and playing these games. Let's be honest, a lot of teenagers especially don't necessarily like themselves. They don't necessarily like certain elements of their own personalities. They don't like the way people perceive them. I think is really the key, that their classmates view them in a certain way, and I think all of us can relate to that idea of you make a mistake at some point in junior high and it follows you until you graduate. Being online, being in a virtual world, you can ignore those things. It gives you an opportunity to be somebody different, to try something different, to try a new element of your personality that you might not be willing to try in a real life setting. And then finally, this last section of the paragraph, in this virtual world, you can create bonds that are formed and that are actually seen as being equally authentic, if not more so, than the bonds that form in their offline everyday lives. And I think that's really important when we consider our students using these virtual worlds. Obviously, virtual worlds have educational benefits. They can allow students to experience things they may otherwise never know. You can, in Minecraft, build a house. A student may not actually ever get to build a house, but they can experience that in the virtual world. But really what I think is important is that it allows students to be somebody else, to try something different without the risks that are involved of actually going out and trying new things. It removes some of the external pressures and social anxiety that I think a lot of our students feel and gives them an outlet. I think it's also important to remember that online interaction with others is a valuable skill to learn, especially as we think about jobs that our students may have in the future. Personally, I work online. I've never met the majority of my coworkers, and yet I interact with them on a daily basis through emails, through instant messaging, through synchronous meetings online, and that sort of thing. So I think giving our students an opportunity to interact with others in a virtual setting is something that will be valuable to them in their future.